Welcome to X Corner. I'm here adding a little mutation to the SuperHeroCrew stuff. I'll be covering the X comics for the week of June 26, 2019. This week we have 6 comics. Age of X-Men the Extremis number 5, Major X number 6, Marvel Comics Presents number 6, Mr. and Mrs. X number 12, War of the Realms Uncanny X-Men number 3, and Wolverine Exit Wounds number 1. Spoilers, of course. We'll start with Age of X-Men and the X-Tremists, number 5. Written by Lee Williams, art by Georges Gianti. We begin with Jubilee rioting with Richter, Northstar, and Iceman. But then we find out how she got there. She was in the Department X office when the pregnant woman they'd had chained up in the basement shows up with an assault rifle, her now-born baby, and an army of rats. Jubilee sees the baby and is confused since they don't exist in this reality. But then it clicks, and she remembers Shogo, her own son. She runs off to get the X-Fan to give to the woman to escape, but it's gone. Moneta took it. Jubilee tracks her to a club and finds her dead. Jubilee's a bit crazy by this time, and she isn't that affected by her co-worker's death, and just wants the keys. She gives the van to the woman from the basement and goes to find the rest of Department X. She sees Blob and Betsy canoodling, so she goes to find Northstar and Iceman instead. Which gets us to the rioting. Meanwhile, Betsy tells Blob that she's been lying and that she never actually erased anyone's memories they caught. She just stored them in her head. She releases the memories so everyone gets their memories Department X stole back. Back with Iceman, Northstar, and Jubilee, Iceman finally remembers who he really is, and they plan to make the people pay for what has happened, which I'm sure we'll see in Age of X-Men Omega. This was a really weird final issue. I do like how when Jubilee, Iceman, and Northstar fully remember who they are and what they were forced to do there, they broke down. They hunted mutants and kept a pregnant woman chained up in their basement to have her baby. That kind of realization can screw a person up. I feel sorry for X-Men when these guys catch up with them. The rest of the issue is just off, though. I don't know why Jubilee could care less that Moneta was killed. Maybe since she realizes this isn't real, it didn't matter to her. Emotionally, I like this series, but as for an actual story, there just wasn't one. Nothing happened. Nothing at all. 6 out of 10. Then there's Major X number 6, written and drawn by Rob Liefeld. So we get to the end of this story, finally. This one was drawn by Rob Liefeld as well as written, so forgive me if I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. We start with Deadpool getting recruited by someone to go help Major X. We then go to the X-Men Red team with Major X, The Essential, and McCoy getting attacked by Old Man Namor and a big fish. Old Man Cable and Deadpool show up to help. The Essential summons some Sentinels to take the fish away, and Major X explodes to defeat Namor. But it's okay, he's fine. Old Man Cable acts creep at a storm, and he takes Major X with him to wherever. Thank God it's over. This series literally got worse as it went on, and didn't start anywhere good. To end it with Liefeld's art was a kick in the teeth too. Proportions were never something you could get his head around, but there's a page with Major X shooting that has the weirdest arms, torso, and leg lengths you would ever see. Also, there's one panel with Old Man Cable cradling Jean Grey, and he's like Hulk-sized. I mean, Cable is big, but Jean isn't tiny. She's literally the size of his leg in this picture. And the last joke is the final page that says, "Can't get enough? Check out Major X number 0. What? No. This was probably the worst thing I've ever read all the way through, and I refuse to grade it. Screw this miniseries and anyone who thought giving Rob Liefeld a comic at Marvel again was a good idea." Then there's Marvel Comics Presents number 6, written by Charles Soule with art by Paulo Sequeira. It's that time again, and we have Talisman from Alpha Flight feeling the return of the demon, so Wolverine enlists the X-Men to go send it back to hell. They fight it, and it goes very badly, as most of the X-Men are killed. Eventually, a blonde woman shows up and pops some bone claws with magic light, and she sends the demon back. We find out she's Logan's daughter from that tryst he had with that witch, I assume. Well, I guess this isn't in continuity then. Or it'll get all retconned somehow. I guess it really never worked in continuity anyway, since it's solely based on a 10-year cycle, which doesn't begin to work with Marvel time. But still, I liked it better when it was even remotely possible that this was really taking place. So that means the reveal of another Wolverine daughter with claws is pretty useless too. Once again, that would have been somewhat more interesting if she exists once the story is done. Her design is also not good, since when she first showed up, I thought she was the original Valkyrie. I'm suddenly not very interested where this story is going. 6 out of 10. Next we have Mr. and Mrs. X number 12, written by Kelly Thompson, art by Javier Pina. Rogue is tied up and Gambit is given an ultimatum. Kill Rogue and lead the Thieves and Assassins Guild, or kill Belladonna and be exiled. Gambit doesn't like ultimatums, and after pulling some ball bearings over his skin while in prison, he uses them to attack the bad guys and free Rogue. Belladonna joins them as they fought off both leagues, and Gambit's dad shows up to help too. Gambit explodes the floor, pretty much ending the fight. They take Chandra captive, and Gambit tells the leagues that he's in charge, and if anyone tries to change that, they'll answer to him. He points his father and Belladonna as his heads, and leaves with Rogue to find the X-Men. They share one final kiss before going off into the temporary sunset. This was a good ending to the run. The wrap-up of the League fight was quick and easy, but since I didn't care too much about that storyline, I didn't mind. I liked the end where they had dinner with Gambit's family and the idea of having kids is brought up. This was a fun romantic romp series while it lasted, and although I didn't enjoy this arc as much as the others, it was still good. Just getting 12 issues was an accomplishment in itself. We'll see if any of this carries over into the reboot, but it was fun while it lasted. 8 out of 10. Then there's War of the Realms Uncanny X-Men number 3, written by Matthew Rosenberg, art by Perry Perez. We're continuing finale week with this miniseries ender. The X-Men are gathering survivors at the baseball field, but room and food is at a premium. Sabretooth has magic and is going to use her to teleport the bad guys everywhere to win the war, but Wolverine wants to stop him. Sabretooth easily outclasses her, but her wolf god boyfriend is there to help. He's made a promise not to interfere, but he still pushes Sabretooth out a window to save Reign. All the New Mutants are reunited, but not for long as the Frost Giants attack the Stronghold. Sunspot goes supernova to stop them, but dies in the process. Magic opens a portal for all the humans to escape, but Sabretooth grabs her, and his army goes through the portal after them. But it was a trick, and she teleported them all to Limbo. Wolfsbane attacks Sabretooth, even though it means her family has to go back to the underworld. She rips out his throat, and then magic cuts his head off and boots it through a portal. We get a post-war aftermath with Danny mourning in the dead, including Sunspot. Well, that was an ending. It unfortunately felt very rushed. I didn't even realize Sunspot died until the end. What an unceremonious way to go. Especially for those reading him in the Avengers. He'll just disappear if they never read this. Very strange. Maybe they'll address it in the main book, but I'm not reading it. I really liked the first 2 issues of this mini, but it fell apart here and became exactly what I feared it would be. To really understand what was happening, I guess you have to read the main book, but even then, the last time I saw Sabretooth, he was sort of a good guy. I guess he got over it? This was a case of the crossover having to finish at a certain point, so the writers just had to get there. Pretty disappointing, especially since we didn't get any Reign losing her family aftermath, and she just goes back to the regular book to die. Unfulfilled might be the new status quo in the X storylines right now. I'm afeared. 6 out of 10. Lastly, we have Wolverine Exit Wounds number 1, written by Chris Claremont, Larry Hama, Sam Keith, with art by Scott Eaton, Sam Keith, and Salvador LaRocca. This book has 3 shorts in it, the first being by Larry Hama and Scott Eaton. This was a more in-depth telling of Wolverine's time at Weapon X. The scientists are trying to control him and can't figure out what's making him go into berserker rages. It's his memory of Sabretooth killing his girlfriend. He even sees Sabretooth when he attacks the bear. He goes out of control and attacks his captors, but they eventually get him back under control. I love Larry Hama for G.I. Joe, but this was pretty lackluster. He didn't add anything to the classic Barry Windsor Smith Weapon X story, and if anything, tried to shoehorn Sabretooth into it, tarnishing that story. The art was good, especially the page with Logan fighting the wolves, but other than that, pretty forgettable. Next is Chris Claremont, Salvador LaRocca's story taking place right after the events of Kitty Pryde and Wolverine miniseries. Kitty, Yukio, and Logan go to a noodle house for a bite to eat. He knows the family. Logan cooks up a mean noodle, but some local thugs show up to hassle the place. Logan obviously beats them up and threatens them to be good little boys, or he'll slice them up. His reputation seems to precede him. Turns out this is his family noodle house, and he's been coming back for years, and he's an ancestor to the owners. The story is fine. It reminded me of the backups from the classic X-Men series, where we get a little denouement to the story we just read. It's only about 35 years too late, though. As we've seen earlier, I guess giving Logan more family is the thing to do nowadays, too. Lastly, we have the Sam Keith story. Wolverine crash lands somewhere and is attacked by Venom randomly, and he defeats him, and that's it. This was just an excuse for Sam Keith to draw Wolverine in his crazy style. Some pages were very beautiful, like when he stabs Venom, but most were just looking like the Max from back in the day. Keith has certain poses, and we get them here over and over. If anything, I think his art has gotten even looser. Overall, this comic was pretty forgettable, even with all these great creators. I was most disappointed in Larry Hama's, since I love G.I. Joe so much. Overall, 7 out of 10. It would have been 10 out of 10 if written 30 years ago, though. Well, that's a bunch of finales. Most sucked, but sticking the landing is hard. It was also a long week, so I'm glad to just get back to 3 comics next week. See you on the other side.